In the beginning, the Lord picked up his pen. Through gleaming golden strokes, he began dreaming about our stories. A mere chord in an angelic symphony, yet adored by God on high. Creation at his fingertips, commands streaming from his pen across the sky. Unexplored white pages fluttered through the atmosphere as God breathed the breath of life into the universe. In harmonious tranquility, we lived without fear of what came next. But that was before the curse stole away the communion of Creator and creation, creating a chasm, severing us from the one who reigns over all. Fear and death entered our world, chains binding us to things unknown, blame and humiliation. The fruit wasn't worth the isolation. The life we felt flowing through our veins feels stale now. Centuries later, creation's strains still to come back to the Creator, our strong foundation. Oh, how the crashing of the waves pales in comparison to hearing your soothing song. How only seeing your work and the details is eclipsed by our heart's lifelong desire for the garden, where dirt only stained fingernails instead of souls. But the chasm didn't stop breaking at just architect and design. As quickly as it took to separate from God, we separated from each other. Hate wormed its way into our wrecked imitation of the garden. War and deceit flooded through the gates opened wide. Animosity and division poured through the door we unlocked through our own pride. And yet, the author was writing a story to cross the chasm and be by our side once more. A story where he himself would be rejected and crucified by those who he had been writing stories for. Page upon page, a love story of the highest degree. Every smile, every faraway dream, and all the tears you've shed flow like rivers culminating on the stage of your life. So why do we never engage with the other stories so carefully written? Why do we never breach surface level? We emphasize understanding and preach intimacy, but never use the key to unlock the cage of estrangement. We focus on relationships, but exchange vulnerability for comfortability, because it's easier to ignore people if their hardships aren't real to us. Unwilling to give up the stability of superficial exchanges, not realizing the means to true connection is at our fingertips. We need only give up our inability to notice the untold stories all around us. Instead, we sit with eyes dilated, watching social media for hours on end, separated from the rest of society, claiming we found connection like no generation before, but we're being drowned in the sea of insecurity, quarantined in disconnection that we created. We aren't learning anything new about each other, educated only through an algorithmically generated world, ground seemingly 30,000 feet below. We love the stories we hear, but know nothing of the people they're about. We watch shows about those ensnared by sin, thinking it's not real and we're free, but those stories only serve to expose the worst parts of humanity. If we learned to learn about each other, we'd be a rose in the desert. And it's not too late. We're not too far gone. These untold stories are still being written. The pen is still on the paper. The maker is still in control. But only when we choose to truly look at each other will a new day begin to dawn. Only when we choose to open our ears, relying on each other in times of need, will we begin to reach togetherness again. We can't do it alone. We must turn to the perfecter of our faith, one who has the power to conquer disconnection. Trust the one who crossed the chasm for you and me, who won the battle over death and division, so the garden can be more than a dream. He's still moving here and now, alive and active. His redemption story isn't over. Wanting more for us than to simply survive in our fractured world, but instead answer his call and begin to thrive in communion with him like we did in the garden, to be a beam of his radiance throughout the divided creation. The untold stories are still being used by God today as a part of his divine redemption. In the beginning, the Lord picked up his pen. Through gleaming golden strokes, he began dreaming about our stories. Each word carefully planned, no story holding more importance than the next, yet he poured his all into each one. And through these stories, he will restore that which is broken. One day it will no longer be man against man fighting for things that don't seem to matter. The untold stories that span centuries will come to light, and the hidden ones will no longer be ignored. God is still writing our stories. The gardener is still tending his flowers. The potter is still molding his clay. And how beautiful that is, that we get to be part of the redemption duet. That our stories form a beautiful bouquet of dreams, hopes, sometimes fears. The Lord will let guide us closer to Him. But to experience this, we can't stay where we are. We have to tell the untold stories.